Sports Chain just launched and the FDV is already in the nosebleeds. Are we early for this token or are we the next round of exit liquidity? We're going to slice into, I can't even say the name, Atleta Network, a sports focused layer one built on Substrate, which is just basically a generic Rust based blockchain framework. It has a roadmap that promises storage, parallelization, and cross-chain rails. It sounds clean, but the tokenomics are messy as hell. Let's see if this thing can outrun Chiliz or if it's just shiny merch for degens. We're going to jump into another altcoin hunt here. We're going to start off with the narrative and vision, as we always do. So looking at their site, first of all, when I just jumped into this, they launched on CoinMarketCap today, August 19th, and you load up their site, and this has nothing to do with sports. At least you can't tell right away. I mean, when you look at Chiliz, which is their sort of competition, I guess, right away I can see, okay, this has something to do. It literally says built for sports. I understand the product. When I go to Atleta, I don't understand what the product is. It just says secure, decentralized, multi-layer blockchain network built for the modern age. Terrible, terrible. Anyway, let's get into what they actually claim. They're a sovereign L1, meaning they built their own token. Again, it's based on Rust. It's aimed at the sports industry, so athletes, clubs, fans, sponsors. It runs NPoS, which is basically nominated proof of stake, built with Polkadots, Substrate, leans into cross-chain. The pitch is basically sports, data, NFTs, dApps, and a multi-chain fabric tailored to sports. Wow, is this actually new? Not really. Again, Chiliz does exist. They're already out there. They already have people, I guess, behind it. I mean, you look at their price and it's completely in the toilet, but whatever. The roadmap angle here is that there is future storage parachain, physical nodes, VM parallelization, and broader interoperability. Wow, what a word. It's ambitious if they actually ship some of this stuff, but does it really matter? And we'll kind of get into that. They have a decent white paper, this Git book that you can check out in terms of all the stuff that they're trying to do. But, will it actually matter in the long run? Does this make sense to actually invest in? You can see Dubai set to dominate global sports with the Web3 transition as football legends, major clubs back blockchain tech and NFTs via the Atleta Network. This is just a press release. I wouldn't put too much into these. Again, another one from Cointelegraph. You can literally send these to these different newspaper, crypto websites, and they'll publish it, right? They need content. See, if their website had this image on the front, I would understand immediately what the hell they were doing. But anyway, let's get into sort of the summary here for the narrative and vision. It's sports specific. It's an L1 with a real infrastructure plan. The roadmap touches real scaling and privacy needs. But the cons here for me are that sports L1 is not new, and the adoption hinges on real clubs and leagues migrating to this network, which is still TBD. That has not happened yet. There's just the hope of that happening. And for that reason, I gave it a 13 out of 20 for the narrative and vision. We can move on to the tokenomics and supply because this is where it gets kind of murky and not in a good way. So this just launched on CoinMarketCap today. The total supply is 3 billion ATLA. The allocation, which we'll get into later in terms of exit risk and VC stakes, but I'll mention it really quick. The funding is 23.5%. Consensus is 16%. Team and advisors is 15%. Treasury is 18%. And community is 26%. That's a lot of percentages. The emissions for this token are 4% inflation buckets across 84 months with automated burn after 7.5 billion enters circulation. Yes, they mentioned 7.5 billion later. It's confusing. Doesn't make any sense to me. The vesting, there's a private sale 6-month cliff with an 18-month vest. The team has an 18-month cliff with a 24-month vest, and the other ones kind of vary. But there's some conflicts you should be aware of. Earlier content and blogs mention a total supply of 7.5 billion. Gitbook shows 3 billion with a burn trigger after 7.5 is circulating. That math doesn't make any sense to me. CoinMarketCap shows self-reported circulating of 421 million. and an FD of 36 billion, which is basically the fully diluted value if everything was in circulation. That's extreme for day one optics. The translation for that basically is that the docs and the media aren't fully aligned, and that's a huge red flag for me. For that reason, I gave it a 9 out of 20 for tokenomics and supply. And we can move on to the tech and execution. So under the hood of this thing, there is a NPoS with, stick with me here, Babe for block production and Grandpa for finality. The quick definitions is nominates, NPoS is basically nominators delegate to validators. Babe is block assignment, and Grandpa is a finality gadget. So that's all you really need to know there. The runtime is an EVM and WASM hybrid, which is Solidity friendly. The performance that the site claims is 80 TPS, 6-second block time, and single block finality on the mainnet page. These are claims. These are not audited benchmarks, right? So take that with a grain of salt. The testnet press noted 3 million transactions in the first 2 months. That's decent traction for a testnet, but mainnet user apps still need to materialize. There's a credible stack here with Substrate, the NPoS. They've thought through their roadmap for everything that they want to do, but the cons are that these are just claims for the TPS and everything else. It needs external benchmarking and real user load. Testnet does not equal product market fit. So for that reason, I gave the tech and execution a 14 out of 20. And we can move on to the market structure and liquidity. It's only listed on MEXC currently that has 100% of the volume. There was a 65K airdrop promotion. Early volume does look strong, but it's a single major centralized exchange right now. One venue and incentives just means volatile order books and easy wicks. Again, the FDV is 37 billion based on a total supply of 3 billion. That's really rich. Until more exchanges sort of spin up on this thing, slippage and manipulation risks are definitely elevated. For that reason, I gave it a 10 out of 20 for market structure and liquidity. And we can move on to exit risk and VC stakes, the final section. Again, the Git book shows funding of 23.5%, team and advisors 15%, consensus 16%, treasury 18%, community 26%, for a total of 100. Vesting does exist. There's cliffs and linear vesting for this, but the buckets are really large. A third-party brief pegs total raise at about 40 million and public sale 0.1%. That's a microscopic float, which aligns with a sort of tight float, high FD setup. That is going to be extremely brutal if unlocks hit into weak demand. Think about that for a second before you invest in this. So the pros here are that the vesting structure and consensus rewards do spread emissions. Treasury can bootstrap, but the cons are that big private and team stacks, tiny public float, and early FDV is, you know, the drill at this point. Unlock calendar becomes your overlord. And in my opinion, that's a huge red flag. I didn't ding them too hard on the score, though. A 10 out of 20 for exit risk and VC stakes. For a final tally for Atleta of 56 out of 100, this is a exit liquidity candidate. There's solid tech architecture and a thoughtful roadmap, but tokenomic inconsistencies, concentrated liquidity, those all scream caution. This can rip on listings and narratives for sure, but structurally, you're swimming with sharper knives. So I personally would not touch this. If you want my kind of insight into how I think this is going to play out, is probably similar to Chiliz, right? At some point, you'll get some hype. Maybe some team says that they will sign and back this token. Then the hype dies off and you're back kind of where you started in the beginning. So that's the other thing. To me here, Chiliz already exists. I don't know why they picked that name. I mean, I'm in the US, so there's a very, I guess, late 90s, early 2000s popular restaurant. I don't know if they're still around. I guess they are. Chiliz. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is kind of how I foresee what happens to Atleta until they can really show that there are big teams behind them, right? And that Dubai is kind of funding this thing. That could give it enough life. It's cool tech. chaotic tokenomics for me. If they fix the supply story and land real sports deals, as mentioned, it could be a high beta flyer. If not, congratulations, you just bought a jersey, basically. Don't be the exit liquidity for this one. I hope this was interesting. Hope this helped you at least think about Atleta in a different way besides just looking at the $12 price tag. I drop these 2 to 3 times a week. If you did enjoy this video, I'm not even going to ask you for it. You already know what to do. And as always, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.